Hello and a warm welcome to our Cheltenham special on our Irish Angle show. We're going to go through all the grade ones at Cheltenham over the 4 days and hopefully we'll pick some winners for you. I'm joined as usual by Johnny Ward and Nagle. Welcome guys to the show. This should be fun.
How's it going, Vinny?
Thanks, Vincent. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, now first of all, before we go into tipping Cheltenham, I just want to mention we have a competition on the site. I'm not sure if everyone watching this has seen it, but it's definitely worth entering. We got a Cheltenham competition where you need to pick or predict the amount of winners there'll be in the Presbury Cup, the number of Irish train winners, the number of UK train winners. That's the basic gist of it. There's one more question where you're asked to predict the Gold Cup winner, but that's only a tie-break question. So first of all, the prize is fantastic. We think it's amazing. You can either go to the Cheltenham Festival in 2024, all 4 days, yourself and a friend. You'll get flights, accommodation, tickets to the races, everything included. Or if you want, you can choose a Caribbean cruise to be taken anytime during 2024. And both prizes are worth €6,000. So €6,000 and it's free to enter. So why wouldn't you do it? Johnny, Emma, I need to ask you, what do you think will be the result of the Presbury Cup? Johnny, first, give me a score. 28 races.
I'm going to go with 20 for Ireland, 8 for the British, Vinny. And I spent this weekend in London and in Huntington and spoke to a lot of English kind of racing fans yesterday and just made the point that I kind of would actually love to see Paul Nicholls win a Gold Cup or Constitution Hill do it for Nicky Henderson because they're not the dominant forces they were. And I don't think Irish domination is actually particularly good for racing because we need British racing to be strong. But having said that, so with the depth of the Irish this year again and considering the score 2 years ago, I'm going to go with 20 for Ireland and 8 for Britain.
Okay. Emma, what do you think?
I was thinking the same, but I'll give the British 2 more. I'll give them 10, and I'll give Ireland 18. It's probably being a bit generous, but like Johnny was saying, I think last year, kind of the first day in particular, I think they kind of sprung a bit of a surprise on us. So it's good competition to have horses from both sides to be up there and competing with it. So yeah, we'll give them 10 hopefully.
Yeah, 18-10. That's exactly what the score was last year. So you think the same again. I'm not quite sure. I think Ireland will win nearly most of the grade ones, and I think it's the handicaps where we may struggle. But having said that, we tend to draw a blank in those handicap chases. But I do think that this year the handicapper seems to have relented a little bit with the Irish, particularly on the chase division. So I think we might win a couple of them this time. So I'll go with something like, what will I go? 22-6. There you go. Push it that way. And that's
Wow.
Ireland, by the way, to have the 22. Okay, look, let's start off here. We've loads of races to go through. So we start off Tuesday, first race, probably one of the most exciting races, always is, the roar of the crowd and everything else. Supreme Novice Hurdle. This is going to be a cracker, isn't it? Facile Vega, will we see the real Facile Vega? I certainly hope so. And then the other big one is Marine Nationale. What do you think, Emma? Are you a Marine Nationale fan?
Yeah, Marine Nationale, probably. I mean, if you're listening to Barry Connell's comments, you'd have to nearly be putting him as nap of the week. He's ultra confident in him. Look, he has the form in the book. In fairness, probably people are probably a bit worried about the big break, but the only thing about that is that it was a planned break. You know, I think he was busy enough all summer, and they just wanted to give him a bit of time to freshen up. He won the Wild Bond despite the ground that day, heavy ground, but I think he's probably a horse who would want nicer ground. He's a flat bred horse, and yeah, I mean, he's a massive chance coming into it. I was always a Facile Vega fan all the way through, but I thought he might be a bigger price now, to be honest, after the last day. What price is he there? Is he around, I think he's around 2 or 3 to 1. 2 to 1, I think, last time I saw. But yeah, he's 5 to 2.
5 to 2 there.
It's probably a bit short. It's a bit short for me now, to be honest, to be backing him at that kind of price after a run like he had the last time at Leopardstown. So I couldn't really back him at the price. They do seem confident now. I think Patrick had an interview the other day, and you know he was pretty bullish about him. So look, it's shaping up to be an interesting race. Not the kind of whitewash we were kind of seeing it as a few months ago when Facile Vega was the big one. Marine Nationale there with his chance. A few others, Gaelic Warrior, not really one that I'd be backing, to be honest. His jumping would be a big worry for me. There's a few more in the race then as well, but who would I be backing at the moment? My money would probably be on Marine Nationale at the moment, to be honest. Look, I know his form when he beat Irish Point took a bit of a knock afterwards, but I think the way he was ridden that day and the ground, yeah, I think he probably is the one to beat for me at the moment. I wouldn't probably at a bigger price, high definition. I think he could run a big race. Probably unlucky to unseat JJ the last time at Leopardstown, but I think that they sound pretty confident on him and his chances. Like the class he's had on the flat, if he can get his jumping right at all, he should be bang there at the end, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Marine National, an absolute freak, according to Barry Connell. He may be right, but I fancied this horse all along, but I thought he wants further. That was my initial feeling watching him race. I may be wrong. The 2 miles here could be perfect for him, to be honest with you, but I'm just not sure. I think there's a little bit of holes in the form, particularly that run in Fairy House. I'm not sure it's as good as I thought it was at the time. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll know soon enough, as they say. The other one, Johnny, could you back a horse at 5-2 that was beaten 20 lengths the last day? I don't think I've ever done that personally.
Yeah, it is a concern. I know something did come to light, and he looked so good previously. I think the market around Facile Vega has been very interesting. His price versus Ilete Tante last day, I mean, there was no comparison whatsoever in the market. I'm surprised High Definition is the price that he is. You're only just about getting double figures, because he was nearly similar price to last day at Leopardstown. He was very, very weak in the betting, and he's obviously taken on better horses here. So he's definitely interesting. But I just think what Facile Vega achieved last season, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in the way Willie has spoken about him. You are getting 5-2 about what he probably thinks is one of the best horses he's ever had. I wouldn't be worried about the trip from Marine National, to be honest, Vinny. I think he's plenty of pace, and his record off a break will be interesting here, because I think Captain CB was the last horse to win with a break of the sort of length that he's had, and that's obviously gone back a while. Barry Connell very competent, but I'm still in the Facile Vega camp. I'm willing to forgive him one run. I think it'll be very interesting in terms of his career. If he's disappointing here, the bubble has pretty much burst.
Yeah, I don't think the bubble has burst. That's the one thing. Like, look, he's a champion bumper winner as well. Lots of positives there if you take out the last day, but it's just a very short price for me. That's the one issue. I'd be liking to get maybe 4-1 or something on the day. If it turns out something like that, I'd definitely back Facile Vega. But having said that, the confidence behind the horse seems to be coming back now in the yard, particularly. They're all seem to be buzzing about the horse. So maybe the 5-2 will turn out to be a good price. We'll know soon enough. The other one there is that hasn't been mentioned is a horse I like, certainly with an each way play, is a horse Diverge, presuming that runs. Diverge, like a 23 length winner of a maiden hurdle. You don't see them too often. By Frankel as well. Like, this could be anything. Absolutely, still could be anything. So I wouldn't put off anyone off having a little each way interest in Diverge. This may not be quite the match it looks on paper at the moment with the big two, but cracking race. Really looking forward to it. Right, we'll move on to the next one. Go quickly. Another cracker. We're looking at the Arkle. El Fabiolo. For me, that's a winner. Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably go with I do think this is a cracking race. And Fabiolo, I thought, was brilliant at the Dublin Racing Festival. He's obviously closely matched with John Bon when he was quite unheralded at the time on the run that you see in the picture there, which was at Aintree last year. And that was a very, very good run. But he's a brilliant jumper. I love what he found off the last. He just might outstay John Bon up the hill as well. He just might have more of a finishing kick than John Bon. You got to remember, John Bon was destroyed up the hill last year, albeit by a very good horse. And yeah, I think Willie has a proper horse here. If Willie runs Cassandra in the race, which I'm not sure he will, he might run him in the Grand Annual. I think he's quite interesting off what will be a good pace. I wouldn't totally rule him out, but yeah, I'd be with his stablemate here.
Yeah, I think the same. Very impressed with the run in Leopardstown. Like, it looked like it was going to be a tough race in Leopardstown coming to the last, but he pulled 10 lengths clear of everything. That's some performance up the hill in Leopardstown, so he's going to have an even bigger hill the next day. I think he's made for this personally. John Bon, we're looking at a horse who's had 3 runs over fences. He's only beaten 6 horses over fences, and he was beaten 22 lengths in the Supreme last year. So I'm just not sure he's the real deal, or I haven't been proven to me yet he's the real deal. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they ride John Bon, I suppose, because last year himself and Dysart Dynamo kind of went neck for neck and, kind of blew each other out, I suppose, and they were in the end destroyed by Constitution Hill. But, will they drop him in? Look, it's kind of obvious that the style, Dysart Dynamo is going to go off and punch, that's kind of just the way he runs, and that suits El Fabiolo. Like, we saw that at Leopardstown. And the form of that race, like, I mean, can't be knocked at all. It's probably the best 2 mile novice form you'll ever get coming into an Arkle. You know, he beat some real grade 1 horses in behind, and like you said, John Bon is improving at that level over fences. They met at Aintree last year, and it was only El Fabiolo's second one of his life, I think. And, you know, barring a mistake at the last, maybe El Fabiolo would have gotten the better of him that day as well. So, you know, his jumping maybe is a slight worry. He can hit one, but, you know, he seems brave. He comes back, and he doesn't seem to worry about the next fence, which is a plus, I suppose. They'll be going so fast in the Arkle, you'd be kind of half worried if he did hit one and off without, you know, could he recover from it? But I think with a clear round of jumping, I think he'll have the engine to take John One out, personally, yeah.
Okay, I think we're pretty much agreed there. This is banker material. Moving on then, Champion Hurdle. Okay, we've got Constitution Hill, currently rated 173, which I think you've got to go back to the last horse that was rated anywhere near that in the Champion Hurdle was Hurricane Fly with a 172. Honeysuckle was rated 161 the first year. She won it 167 or 165 the second year. Like, this is different gravy, isn't it? We're dealing with a horse that's on a different level here. Johnny, there is no opposition here, is there? Stateman's a good horse, 167, which would put him, he'd have won most Champion Hurdles in previous years on that rating, but at the same time, he's a lot to find.
He does, but he's I wouldn't say there's no opposition either. You know, Stateman has been on a real upward curve. You know, he obviously arrived in Cheltenham as a novice when Willie's stretched his kind of horse around that year. And if you look after his fall first time out for Willie in Leopardstown, he's 6 from 6. And I thought he's been very tactically versatile as well. You can ride him pretty much any way you want. I thought, as much as you can kind of say Honeysuckle has been on the decline this season, he absolutely slammed her the last day, and he slammed a really good horse in Vauban as well, who was about 5 lengths behind him. So I think he's really good. And as such, I think I'm kind of talking about this again last night. I'm just wondering how far Constitution Hill will win by. I don't think he's going to absolutely hack up here. I don't think he's going to win by 10 lengths. I think Stateman is too good. I think he'll win and probably be the least impressive he's been so far, because he's going to have a race. I think he'll win by 2 or 3 lengths ridden out because I think Stateman's very good, but that's how I call it.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to see a good race here. I just can't see it, personally. Emma, what do you think? Is Stateman a danger?
Yeah, I definitely think Stateman's a danger. It'll be interesting to see what Paul Townend does tactically. Stateman, I think he got the run of the race the last time in Leopardstown, and Paul kind of rode him perfectly, I suppose, to win that. But, you know, he beat some very good horses that day. As Johnny said, Honeysuckle, I don't think she's declining as much as people are saying. And Vauban is a very good horse, probably maybe a horse for next year more so than this year. But, you know, I think he'll give Constitution Hill a good race. I'm not saying he's going to beat him. I wouldn't be backing him personally, but I wouldn't say Constitution Hill is going to ramp home by 10 lengths that easily. I think he has a small bit to prove in a way, Constitution Hill. I mean, he's only beaten Epatante this year, really, whereas Stateman has kind of beaten, you know, champion hurdle winners. He's beaten Vauban, the juvenile hurdle winner from last year. So, you know, his form is very, very solid, and Constitution Hill is going to have to be as good as everyone's saying to beat him. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting race, I think, without not much of a betting angle, though, I don't think.
I'd agree. Okay, we move on then. Only half an hour, 40 minutes later, we've got the Mares Hurdle. Honeysuckle, 2 Champion Hurdle wins. And coming into this, what do you make of that, Johnny? Mares Hurdle, can Honeysuckle do it?
She probably can, and I know, like, I'm not a fan of these mares races, but to be fair, we've an unbelievable day one at Cheltenham, and even, I mean, Honeysuckle realistically winning the Champion Hurdle, she'd make it a better race, I think, but you know, it just adds to the allure that you could have all the emotion of a Henry de Vromheid trained winner for a start, and then, you know, Honeysuckle was placed in the public imagination, and that of Rachel Blackmore. So this is going to be loaded with sentiment, this race, one way or the other. But I'm going to go with Brandy Love, Vinny. I think she was so weak in the betting on her return. She probably needed the run a little bit, and she has to be better going left-handed. She's actually rarely run left-handed. Her performances last season, particularly when she smashed Love Envoy, she's really, really good, and she hung quite badly towards the end of her return recently. So I think you can probably exonerate her that run a bit. If she comes on from that, I think she'll be thereabouts.
Very good. Emma, what do you think? Are you a fan of Honeysuckle? Do you think she'll do it?
Yeah, I think Honeysuckle is the best horse in the race. As simple as that. I don't think she's regressing, as I said. I don't think she's regressing as much as people are saying. I think she showed the last 8 Leopards Down that she still wanted to race. She put her neck down when Vauban came to her, and she battled to get the second place that day. Look, I mean, you're not going to meet a state man in the mare's hurdle, like, realistically. So she's going to be bang there either way. At a bigger price, maybe I think Echoes and Rain has a big shout for Willie Mullins if she shows up there. I don't think he was totally certain if she would be here, but she's around 7-1 now. She might drift out a bit on the day as well. I mean, she showed her class on the flat all summer, and I think she was very, very impressive winning she win the Limestone Lad Hurdle in Punchestown at over 2 miles, and I thought she was brilliant that day. And the thing about her is, I think she disappointed here last year, but she's kind of learning how to race a bit better. She was always very keen, but she seems to be settling a bit more without the hood, which is kind of a reverse psychology thing, maybe, or I don't know what it is. But when you take the hood off her, she seems to settle a bit better. She fell in behind Honeysuckle, Tiupu, and Classical Dream in the earlier on in the season in Fairy House, and I thought she looked like the winner that day nearly. Even Hatton's Grace, yeah, she looked like nearly going to come on and win the race that day. So I think she's probably maybe one who is maybe a bit underrated coming into the race for me.
I agree with you. If this runs, I think this has a great chance of winning Echoes and Rain. I really like the run in the Hatton's Grace. For me, I'd agree with you. Echoes and Rain was always one of these, used to run with the choke out, very hard to get home. That has changed. That run in Fairy House for me was fantastic. Cruising in behind, looked as much a winner as anything else in that race, and we know that form is rock solid, with Honeysuckle obviously finishing third, and you had Tiupu winning it and gone on and won since, and everything else. And Classical Dream, we know, is a fair horse too. I think that's a really good run. I think Echoes in Rain had to be there or thereabouts if it hadn't fallen, and then it proved it the next day in Nace, won very well. Real good performance again. The flat run in September in the Curragh, that was some performance as well in the Cesarewitch. That was probably as good a Cesarewitch as you'd ever see, because they pushed the prize money up there to such a high level. That was a cracking run. Waterville got the ride of the century from Wayne Lorden or whatever that day, but that's a serious flat run. And coming in here off a good jumps victory as well, I'd really like this Echoes in Rain. If presuming it turns up, I thought it was going to turn up, but you're putting a little bit of doubt in my mind now. So look, it's non-runner, no bet, of course, at this stage with the 7-1 we're looking at there on screen. So for me, that's certainly a bet. Okay, we're going to go day 2, and we go to the first race, the Ballymore. This could be a race of the ages, and the reason I say that is that we've got 3 contenders at the top of the market. We've got Goodland is a 7-year-old, Hermes Allen is a 6-year-old, and Impair a Pass is a 5-year-old. And when you go through this, 7-year-olds, we've only had 2 7-year-old winners in the last 32 years for this race. One of them was Sir Gerhardt last year, admittedly, and French Holly in 1998. Then you go Hermes Allen. 21 6-year-olds have won this in the same period. So it's normally a 6-year-old you're looking for. And then we're looking at 5-year-olds. They have a very poor record in this. You've got to go back to 2013 is the new one, was the last 5-year-old to win it. So really, the form book will tell you, or the stats will tell you, it's Hermes Allen. What do you think, Emma? You're a fan of Goodland, I know that much.
Yeah, I'm on Goodland now for a long time, so I don't think I can desert him yet. He's around 5-1, which I think is even still a big price for him, considering like his form. He, even before he won the Grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival, he had beaten Embassy Gardens and a few other good horses in behind, and he really hammered them at Christmas. So I think he's probably being a bit underrated. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because Barry Connon trains him. He's not the big name trainer. He's kind of, I suppose it's his first season having really good horses in training. Again, Michael O'Sullivan rides, and maybe another knock for people who don't follow Irish racing closely. I mean, Michael's a £5 claimer, obviously, but it's kind of ceiling £5 at the moment. He looks like kind of a revelation. So it's Goodland for me. I do like Impair a Pass as well, which I wouldn't be putting Goodland as a banker or anything like that, just because I think Impair a Pass is a very high quality horse as well. But yeah, I'm with Goodland at 5-1.
Okay, Johnny, what do you make of it? Is it between the 3? That's the first thing.
They're 3 very good horses. Isn't it notable that Barry Connell reckons and would take the beating in the Supreme if Breeding National weren't running in it? He's definitely very bullish. I did a piece with him last week, and he speaks very highly of this horse. Michael O'Sullivan that Emma mentioned says he's going to be a right good chaser, which kind of almost implies that there's more to come. So maybe you could take that as a good or a bad thing in terms of his chance here. But I like Imperial Pass. I think he's looked very, very classy so far. I think the trip is going to suit him down to the ground. You see, obviously there he's 3-1 in the betting. So he's shortened up a good bit. But I'd be intrigued to see what Willie runs the race as well. I think Gaelic Warrior might run here. But I do like Imperial Pass. I think he's loads of class.
Well, Hermes Allen, hopefully. That'll run well for Alex Ferguson after the 7-0 defeat by Liverpool yesterday for his Man United. He could do it a little bit of a G-up. They paid $350,000 for this after winning the point-to-point. It's a fair horse. The form is in the book here. 3 smooth victories, including over the course and distance in November. I'll be surprised if Hermes Allen is not a serious contender in this. I know Paul Nicholls has had a desperate run of it at Cheltenham in the last few years, as all the English trainers have, but I think he's got a real good one on his hands here. I think he's a definite contender. I think he'll be thereabouts. It's a very tricky race, though. We've got 3 very good horses in it. Right, we move on to the next one. The Brown Advisory Novice Chase. 3 miles, 80 yards. And we've got a horse here who's going to love 3 miles and 80 yards, we presume, anyway, is Jerry Colomb. Unbeaten. He's won a point-to-point, 2 bumpers, 2 hurdles, and 3 chases. The only maybe little slight negatives is he's never run at Cheltenham is the first thing. And the second one is he's never run on the track beyond 2 miles, 5 furlongs. Will he stay, Emma?
Oh, he'll stay all right. That's probably the last word you'd have about him. I love Jerry Colomb. I put him up in my horses to follow kind of early on in the season. He's unbeaten to date. And I don't see him getting beat at Cheltenham either, to be honest. I think he might be one of my bankers of the week. If you look at the race, second favourite in the race, I think is Mighty Potter, who isn't even going to run in it. Sir Gerhard, another contender. I couldn't have him, to be honest. Look, he's a very classy animal, but stepping up to 3 miles, don't even know if he'll stay and don't even know if he'll jump around either. So I think Jerry Colomb, he's shown his class this year. I think he's probably a Gold Cup horse in waiting, if anything. The ground probably would have been a concern before he's run at Sandown. He proved at Sandown that he can be a Grade 1 contender over 2 mile 5 on good to soft ground at a sharp track. I think all the conditions were against him that day, and he just showed his class to beat good horses in behind. So yeah, I think he's probably one of my bankers of the week. I can't see him being beaten here. I think might be a Gold Cup winner at some stage, hopefully.
Great stuff. Johnny, what do you think of this race?
Yeah, I'm the same camp. Vinny, I really like this horse, and as Emma mentioned, that Sandown effort was encouraging with regard to the ground. He's a really solid jumper. They've been speaking so highly of him all year, and they've kind of tried to keep him away, I suppose, from Mighty Potter. But I think he's made for this race. His stamina is going to be his forte. He finds plenty for pressure. He gives you the impression he's only kind of doing enough in his races, and yeah, he'd be one of my bankers of the week as well.
Great stuff. Okay, we'll move on now. The Queen Mother Champion Chase. Interesting thing here is the sequence of winners in this race. We had 2 S's, Sprinter Sacre and Special Tiara, 2 years in a row. Then we had 2 A's, Altior and Altior again. Then we had 2 P's, which was Politologue and Put the Kettle On. So we're looking for 2 E's now. We had Energamine last year, and we've loads of E's this time. Energamine, Editor de Geet, and Edward Stone. Looks like one of them will win it, I think, anyway. Which one do you make it, Emma?
Energamine for me. I'm going to forgive him for his last run. I think he's probably just the best horse in the race. I don't think Willie sounded too disappointed by his when he was beaten by Editor de Geet and in behind Edward Stone as well the last time. So I think he'll probably come on for it. Whatever happened that day, I think maybe Paul probably would have rode him a bit differently if he got to go again at it. He'll probably go more forward. I think he's probably more of a galloper than a real speed horse. So I'm going to take him to overturn the form. Look, Edward Stone's no joke either. Arkle winner last year. He's a real classy animal as well. But I just think Energamine, if things go right for him on the day, he didn't jump great last time. But if he gets a nice ride, I think Paul will probably make plenty use of him, and I think he could probably gallop him into the ground.
Great stuff. Johnny, what do you make of it? Is it going to be won by a horse beginning with E?
Yeah, I'd like Energumene. I mean, I've been on Blue Lord Antepost for some time, and if I'd be very frustrated if they reroute him to the Ryanair, which I don't think it'd be a good call. I don't think I think he's an out and out 2 miler. He was very disappointed at Leopardstown, and I suppose you have that concern that would have expressed previously. He was fairly well beaten behind Edwardstone in the Arkle last year, but we'll see what happens with him. Hopefully, he turns up and we have him backed each way. But I'd agree with them. Like maybe Energumene is a little bit better on softer ground. I've kind of thought that all along, but I definitely think they're going to ride him differently. I think he'll be far more prominent this time, and you got to remember his performance last year. He was fairly flawless. He was obviously ridden patiently on that occasion, but I think the mistake that they may or may not have made at Cheltenham the last year will stand them here, and I think he's just a better horse than Edwardstone, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, Gentleman to Me, stable companion. He has to come into it somewhere too on the performance the last day. When he's good, he's very, very good. But then again, when he's bad, he's absolutely awful. So I'm just not sure which one turns up. But if the real Gentleman to Me turns up here, he's without a doubt a contender in this, and it's going to be a cracking race. Love this 2 miles, jumping fences, fantastic stuff. We move on then to the last race on the second day is the Bumper, another Grade 1 contest. This has to be about as tricky a race as there is in Cheltenham this year, I would have thought. The only thing you can take into this is Willie Mullins wins it more often than he doesn't. He's won the race 12 times, including the last 3 years. Last year, he had 3 of the first 4. The previous year, he had the first and second, and the previous year, he had the first and second. So we can narrow it down to Willie Mullins, but even that isn't going to be too much of a help. What do you think, Johnny? Is it one of his?
I'd love to see John Kiley win this, to be honest, Vinny. I don't have a strong view in the race. I don't think I've ever backed the winner of the Cheltenham Bumper. I backed one time. I backed the winner of the Cheltenham Bumper, horse Willie, a few years ago at a decent price. Generally, I find it a hard race, and it's a race that I tend to look at a horse at a nice price. I'd love to share win it. Obviously, JP has bought him. He's a sort of a flat pedigree to some extent. He's plenty of pace, so as long as the ground is decent, I think he'll definitely suit him. He was really good at Leopardstown the last day, but I'm going to go with Better Days Ahead. There was so much chat about him from Gordon's this season, and I know he was beaten by Karen Funnock at the J and Mine Date down right. I think that was a mess for a race for him. It was too slowly run. He's probably more of a staying type. This is going to be properly run, and I think his performance at Fairyhouse, the horse he beat is actually, I think, pretty much the same price as him in the betting, Chapeau de Soleil, and despite the fact for me he beat him quite readily. So he's a lot of talent, this horse, and I think he's going to only get better.
Very good. Emma, what do you make of it?
Yeah, obviously, John Kiley's horse has probably the best form in the book. He beat a lot of the best bumper horses in the country at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival. But I'm with Johnny as well. Might be a slightly biased on Better Days Ahead. We actually bred him here, so. But yeah, I agree. I think there's just a lot more to come from him. He beat Chapeau du Soleil, which is kind of, I think they're, like Johnny said, they're around the same price in the market, which doesn't make a whole quite of sense. It's probably just the hype around that horse more than anything. But Gordon really likes Better Days Ahead as far as I can gather his quotes. Jamie Codd said that he'd be riding him, so that's 2 pluses already. I think 12 to 1, 10 to 1 or 12 to 1. I think it's just a good price for a like I wouldn't be backing it. Like it's for me seems very short. Given what he's done on the track, it's it's a lot of hype around these bumper horses, which is kind of hard to really buy into it unless you have more information on it. Maybe if you know the owner or something like that, but. It's hard to back a horse at that price, just off 1-1 on the track like that. So, Better Days Ahead, he's around 10 to 1. It's a good each way bet, if nothing else. So I think he'll be bang up there. He'd like a strong pace, I think, which, he didn't get that so far this year. So, which is probably going to show me that he will improve, with a stronger pace in the Champion Bumper, you're likely to get it. He's going to be a real galloper. He's by Milan, he'll stay. I think he'll be some chaser when he gets that far. So yeah, he's the one for me as well.
Okay, he's about going against Willie with his fantastic record in the race. Another thing to note is Willie is going to run a load of horses in this, and his last 5 winners have all had different jockeys on them. Patrick rode 1, Rachel Blackmore rode a winner, Katie Walsh, Paul Town and Ruby Walsh. They're his last 5. The other one for me is here. There's 2 of these Munir horses. It's For Me, which is one of the favourites, and Fun. Daryl Jacobs will ride 1. He could be the 6th winning jockey for Willie Mullins in this race, in the last 6 goes of it for him. So I'd be inclined to think that I think the 2 Munir Suede horses are very good. The word from the yard is that they're serious horses, so it'll be interesting to see which one Patrick rides, presuming he rides one of them, and which one Daryl Jacob rides. Best price is the thing here. You're looking for a bit of value in it, and at the moment, the market doesn't look great from a punting point of view. There's just so many question marks in here with so many unbeaten horses coming into it too. Anyway, what's your best bet of the second day? Emma, you're saying Jerry Calam. Would you be the same, Johnny?
Yeah, maybe at a price better days ahead, but yeah, I'll go with that, Vinny. I think he's one of the bankers of the meet.
Yeah, Energamine for me would be my second day best bet. I think the 7-4 looks a fair price. Right, we go on to the third day. We've got a lot of people's banker in the first race, Mighty Potter. What do you think, Emma? Is this one of your bankers?
Yeah, it's hard to see Mighty Potter being beaten, to be honest. He's done it time and time again. You don't nearly forget how good he was over hurdles as well, which probably made him a small bit underrated coming into it this year. But he's the competition behind him. It's kind of hard to see. Banbridge, I think, is behind him in the market. He'd have to improve an awful lot. I know he ran a nice race in the Arkle at Leopardstown, but probably the way he was ridden that day just suited the way the race felt. He was ridden to kind of pick up the pieces, I suppose, when they were going so fast in front, and he stayed on well. He does love the hill, is probably the only thing that would draw you to him. He loves Cheltenham. He was brilliant there at the November meeting earlier on in the year. He looked like he was one of my horses to follow after that. The spring ground will help him as well, which is a plus. And he was a very good winner of the Martin Pipe as well. So there's a few pluses to him as well. Now he will have to improve to overturn the form with Mighty Potter from Fairyhouse, but I think the ground that day probably went against Banbridge a lot. It was quite heavy that day, and Banbridge probably more of a spring ground horse. So, he's got the form at Cheltenham, which probably would draw you to him, but I'd find it hard to back him against Mighty Potter myself. But yeah, I think it'll be a good race. Mighty Potter is the winner for me, though.
Yeah, that's the one thing you talk about, course form. Banbridge is a course winner at the festival, whereas Mighty Potter, only previous course form, is pulled up in last year's Supreme, which is a tiny worry for me. What do you think, Johnny? Any worry for you?
I suppose it's probably the main worry, but everything else would suggest that he'll take an awful lot of beating here. He's a really, really good horse, and I think it's unfortunate that Jack Kennedy's out, but I think this really is the apple of his eye. And the Gordon has two really, really exciting novices, and he and Jerry Calam. And I just think, as Emma mentioned, like the Banbridge form, I find it hard to see, as much as Banbridge has proven at Cheltenham, I find it hard to see him really reversing that. And he's the only one concern is, as you mentioned, that performance last year. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and the market's going to be fascinating here, because I think he could be hammered in the bet, and he's just so good.
Yeah, I wouldn't, like, he's short enough at the moment already at 11-8. You'd struggle to take evens or shorter a horse in a Grade 1 chase in Cheltenham. We'll move on to another Grade 1 chase in Cheltenham, the Ryanair chase, where this is 2 miles, 4.5 furlongs. That's the thing, isn't it? It's the trip. We've got Shishkin is now a short price favourite after the win the last day in Ascot, and we're looking like Blue Lord will probably step up and trip here too. What do you think, Johnny? Blue Lord is one you're on about. You don't think this trip suits that horse. What about Shishkin? Is this the real deal now?
I don't know. The thing with Shishkin is he had a wind operation, and he did return to form the last day. He was brilliant, in fairness to him, but I had a good bit of money on him now last year, and I very much got my fingers burnt. And it was a frustrating sort of to have a good bet at Cheltenham based on his win over Honor Jameen, thinking he'd be better going left-handed, and he produced no sort of run at all. And I don't think it was the trip that beat him that day. So I'm just not sure he's going to maintain his kind of renaissance. It's just be a bit of a concern for me. I find this race trappy, for all that he's going to make it something of an each way betting a race if you want it else. At his price, I couldn't have him, like after last year, there's no way I'm backing Shishkin at odds on in a race at Cheltenham, simple as that. So I'm going to go with French Dynamite. I think he's been trained for the race by Mouse Morris. He's good course form, obviously, from earlier on in the year at the November meeting. He does have his limitations. I think, he was a little bit unlucky the last day, for all that he was probably a little bit, I think he would have finished closer, bar being hampered at the last. But I think he'll run a big race, and he might finish in the frame. It's a trappy one for me, but I'd be against Siskin at the prices.
Yeah, French Dynamite's an interesting one. I like when Mouse Morris runs a horse in Cheltenham. He rarely sends one over just for the trip. They always run well, or at least they're fancy to run well. He's had some great ones down the years. I'd be interested in that as well from an each way point of view if it does turn up Fury Road, another one for me. I thought that ran a cracker with Gallopin Des Champs. Presuming it goes here rather than going for a Gold Cup, which is highly unlikely, I would have thought. I thought that was a very good run. He was still level with Gallopin Des Champs at the last that day in Leopardstown, made a mistake and then hung across in the over to the far rail. That's level of form he's proven over the trip as well. So that's the one thing for me. What do you think, Emma?
Yeah, I can't trust Shishkin at odds on, to be honest. He's not one that I'd be backing. I agree on Fury Road. I think he might be one at a bit of a price who, I think he's a great chance. He ran a great race behind Gallopin Des Champs the last day. He was right with him coming to the last. And, he could be just maybe a bit of a dark horse and it maybe a bit forgotten about. I'm not sure. Are they going for the Gold Cup? Did you mention? I thought they might send this fella here if they're going to go to the Gold Cup. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think he'll come here. It's the obvious race, yeah.
Yeah, they have conflated for the Gold Cup, so you'd think, the sponsors owning Fury Road, they'll probably want to send something here, and I think he'd be going there with a great chance. He's course form. He hasn't run at Cheltenham too often, I don't think, but he was third in Albert Bartlett a few years ago. And, I think he's probably just a horse who he probably has a big race in him, and maybe this will be it. Shishkin, I don't think he's as rock solid as the price suggests he is. Look, he's back to near enough. He's best. But, will he do that every day? He's had so many problems. It's hard. He's not really a horse that you could be backing at each odds on. I wouldn't be throwing him into any accumulators or anything like that. So he could go up and he could turn up in the day and just obliviate the whole lot of him. But, he could probably pull up just as easily. And Canadil is probably another one. I thought he was very impressive at Goran the last day. And I think they were saying he looked heavy in the ring before that and all this, but for some reason he's just a horse I can't trust either. He's probably, if he was maybe a bit more of an each way price, I might back him. But two horses probably top of the market that I wouldn't be trusting fully. So I'm probably going to go with Fury Road. I think bit of an each way price.
Yeah. And of course, if Blue Lord runs, there's no certainty that'll stay the trip either. This is the other thing. So it's an intriguing little race. Fury Road for me looks like each way value. Certainly to hit the frame, and God, Sheckin Purse was in it as well. There was a time, wasn't there, when he looked like the real deal, but his UK form is absolutely atrocious, so we'll draw a line through that one. Right, we'll move on to the third grade one on the day. This is, for me, one of the races of the week again, is the Stayers Hurdle. What a lineup we're due to have here. Emma, let you start off on this. What do you think?
I think I've kind of bounced around between nearly every horse in the race at some stage. Blazing Cal, top of the market. I think he's a brilliant horse. If he gets there in top shape, I think he'll probably be the one to beat. Tiupu, another. Look, I don't even like the Stayers Hurdle, to be honest, but you're going through the horses in it, and it's definitely one of the most exciting races of the week. Tiupu, another one. He was brilliant at Goran last time. Ground probably the only concern. Don't think it's that much of a concern once it's any bit soft, which it probably will be. They're watering, and I think there's a bit of rain in the forecast, so I think it'll be fine for him. Home by the Lee, I was down to see him at Joseph's last week, and they were kind of talking me into him, to be honest. I met his groom, and she just absolutely adores this fella, and I think there was just kind of a few things that were changed about him. I think they moved stable and all this. He's a bit of a character, there's a few things about him, and I've probably been underrating him so far this year, but he's another massive chance in the race. But if I was going to put a bet on right now, it will be Blazing Cal. I think Charles Burns, just the way he's trained him, and he's just looks like a very, very good horse. I think if he was chasing, he'd probably be right up there with Jerry Calam, going to win an RSA kind of horse. So he's not kind of the typical reverted from chasing Stayers Hurdle horse. So yeah, I think he's my bet in this race. Actually, at a bigger price, I meant to mention Asterion Forlange, 20-1. Any chance with that? Do you think? A bit of a nutcase, but he was a high class horse in his day. If he showed up here at 20-1, he'd have to be a bit of an each way bet, I would think.
The old horse who used to jump fences like a fridge. No technique whatsoever over fences. Back over hurdles, you wouldn't rule him out if he turns up here. He could be a real little funny one in here, but I agree with you. I think you've summed it up right. Blazing Cal wins. I think this could be one of the bets of the week, personally. Can't see a flaw in this. You could say, he's only had the one run this season, everything else and all the rest after the long layoff, but that's been a plan all the way through, I'd say, from Charles. I'd say everything has gone according to plan, and this horse is ready to produce his best on the day. And if he produces best on the day, and the other thing is he's not ground dependent, which I'm convinced Tihupu is. I think good ground isn't going to be an issue. I don't think soft ground is going to be an issue for this guy. Johnny, what do you make of it?
I like Home by the Lee, Vinny. I'm encouraged at what Emma said there. I just think he's a better horse this year. He didn't run badly in the race last year, but he's just he's travelling better in these races. He's a horse that we've seen for some time now. He finds plenty for pressure. His performance at Navan was far from a one-off with what he did at Leopardstown. I thought he was basically he looked the likely winner of that race a long way out. If Florent Porter, who we haven't mentioned, if he turns up, there's going to be I think there's going to be a good pace in the race. I don't think he's going to get a soft lead this time. Home by the Lee, he'll be able to, judging on this season form, he'll be able to lie up with them. And I suppose I do like Tiupo, but I would have some ground concerns. Blazing Cal you'd have to respect as well, but Home by the Lee, I think he's going to be a great each way bet on the day. I really don't see him being out of the first three, and he's exactly the type of horse that you want for this race.
Yeah, I think there's about 6 horses in this that won't be out of the first 3, so it becomes quite difficult, but I do think Blazing Cat will beat them all. We shall see who's right on the day. What's your best bet of this third day's racing? Would you be Mighty Potter, Johnny? What's your banker for the third day?
I'll give my best bet as Home by the Lee, Vinny, and maybe you might even get 4 places on the day. Maybe I should think, but I really don't see me out of the 3.
Great stuff. Emma, what's your best bet of this third day's racing?
It's a tricky day. I'll go Fury Road each way. I think he'll be in the first 3.
Great stuff. I'm going to stick with Blazing Cal. He's my one. Don't want. He's all have me now with all these other options in it. There's including Classical Dream. If that turns up, that has to have a chance to be in the places as well. Right, we move on to the fourth and final day. Another cracking day's racing. We've got some really good ones here, starting off at the Triumph. An interesting thing here is that you wouldn't normally be fancying fillies in the Triumph. I think there's Burning Victory's the only filly to win in the last 20 years. Yet we've got 2 at the head of the market here. Lossy Mouth and Gala Marceau. Johnny, what do you think? Lossy Mouth, are you still in that camp despite the defeat the last day?
Yeah, you mentioned Burning Victory. She was obviously desperately fortunate to win the race, so I suppose they should have an even worse record in the race. But I'm still in her camp. Yeah. I think it was just very unfortunate the last day what happened. I think it's very telling in terms of the way racing is going, because our juvenile division, generally you wouldn't really expect the Irish to win the Triumph. There'd normally be like a very good sort of ex-flat horse, so that they'd have, the likes of Alan King might have or something like that. But like Willie Mullins has completely dominated the market here. He's the first 3 in the bet, and you see 13-8 Lossy out there. The other 2 horses are, you're not even getting an each way price on Blood Destiny, and the third favourite then is 5-1 or thereabouts, and the rest of it, I think the shortest price, Gala Marceau, who obviously beat her the last day there, you see 5-1. Wouldn't really be sure she's going to confirm that form. If you look at the SPs, the last day Lossy Mouth was totally expected to beat her. I think she was unlucky. She's a very, very good horse. It's reputedly Blood Destiny didn't show a lot at home, but he's fairly taken to race and brilliant jumper as well. And I just think Lossy Mouth will bounce back with a clear run, but she won't have it easy. It's a really competitive race. And interestingly enough, Vinny, they're pretty much all national hunt-bred horses as well, the first 3 in the betting, which must be a first in the Triumph hurdle.
Yeah, an interesting thing here is Burning Victory won this race 20 years ago. Willie Mullins then went 18 years without a victory in this race, and now he's won 2 of the last 3. And he looks almost certain to win it this time, doesn't he, with one of these 3. The other one is that Blood Destiny. It beat Nusret 18 lengths in Fairyhouse. And Nusret comes out and wins a grade 2 since. That has to be a contender, Emma, does it?
Yeah, Blood Destiny was the one for me all along, to be honest. I thought he was, even from his first run at Cork, I thought he was just very, very impressive visually. And, the form of the races has worked out very well for him. I think he beat, in Cork that day, he beat Sir Alan, who was an impressive winner afterwards. And then next time, when he beat Nusret, there was a few good horses in behind him. So, you can take that race in a few different ways, I suppose. The way he got the run of the race that day, and Nusret and a few others weren't really put into it fully until late on. Maybe he had the race in the bag by then. He's not going to get it that easy in the Triumph. Which is, I think he's probably versatile. He doesn't look like an overly awkward horse. He's keen and he jumps well. So he's probably the one for me. There's been awful lot of talk about a few days, and I think it's pushed him into nearly favourite in the market at the moment. So he's probably this. Obviously, he's showing some very impressive things at home. One horse of Joseph's was it Comfort Zone. He has a bit of ground to find on Lossiemouth, but he has beaten the best of the English horses, and he has 2 runs at Cheltenham, which is probably going to stand to Juvenile an awful lot. You'd have to think, 2 track wins, grade 2 wins at Cheltenham. A 10-1, I could definitely see him in the first 3. So apart from the first 2 in the market, I think he's probably a bit of a dark horse in the race.
Yeah. And then the way the betting is going, the one that's going to be a forgotten horse is this Gala Marceau, which has beaten Lossiemouth the last day. So just that could end up an each way price the way this is shaping up as well. So a very interesting race again. We'll move on to the next race, which is the Albert Bartlett. This could be a cracker, couldn't it? Just we're not certain of the lineup even at this stage. We're only whatever we are. We're only 8 days out and from the start of Cheltenham, and yet we still don't really know what's definitely going to line up here. But the one that's heading the market at the moment is Corbett's Cross, along with Embassy Gardens is the other one. But Corbett's Cross will be one that, if this turns up, it's going to be a serious contender for Emmett Mullins and Paul Byrne. We discussed this on last week's show, Johnny. What do you think?
Yeah, it was funny to see. You were saying that you thought that Corbett's Cross was going to be a changing of Paul's ways. And I was saying it wouldn't be surprising if JP McManus bought him, but I honestly didn't expect. It was kind of only a speculative comment, and reputedly reputedly Paul Byrne turned down serious money for this horse, like crazy money. So whatever JP paid, the best of luck with him. It's he wants winners, and I suppose he might want winners at Cheltenham, which means I'm told that Paul isn't mad on this race in general. So I think the fact that he's changed to JP might mean he actually turns up here, which would be good. I tipped him up at. I think I tipped him up at 14 or 16 to 1 on Run and No Bet a while ago. I also tipped up Let's Be Clear About It, who I think is interesting. If you look back earlier on in the season, he was behind American Mike at Down Royal, but he hadn't run in a year and a half, and I thought he looked full of himself at Punchestown the last day. Gavin Cromwell has a really good record in this race. He's about 20 to 1 thereabouts. So just looking on the screen here, do we have him? He is 20 to 1, yeah. That's a top price. So I think he's going to be trained for the race, and I think he's probably going to outrun his odds. But I'm hoping Corbett's Cross shows up. We've a really cracking race here, and I think those backers of Corbett's Cross, the news that JP bought him is probably good for his participation in the race.
Emma, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, Corbett's Cross, a horse who's impressed me for a long time as well. JP bought him at the weekend. I'd say it's probably still not totally certain that he will go to Cheltenham. He only ran last week, and he had quite a hard race that day, over 2 miles on kind of nice-ish ground, which wouldn't be probably his ideal. He's probably a horse for next year, so I wouldn't be totally surprised if they didn't go. But as Johnny said, JP probably wants winners at Cheltenham after, I'd imagine, spending quite big money on this fella. So I think if he goes there, he'll be awfully hard to beat. Henry de Bromhead is another man with a great record in this race. I think he won it a few years ago with Manila Endo, who won that race at Tramore, who we saw Monty Star and Hidden Valley Lake fighting out the last day. The two of those are obviously going with a massive chance, but I think maybe a forgotten horse in the market might be Shambally Kid for Willie Mullins. He actually beat Monty Star at Navan earlier in the year, owned by Gigginstown. I think he's probably won. What price is he? Is he around 16 to 1? Yeah, 16 to 1 is an each. It's an each way bet for me, I think, in this race. He looks like a dour stayer. He won a bumper last year for Richard O'Brien, and he was bought by Willie last time. Maybe slightly disappointing first time out for Willie, but I thought he was good at Navan the last day when he beat Monty Star. Only about 9 to 1 for the race, I think. So yeah, I think Shambly Kid, I wouldn't be surprised to see him running a big race in this, but Corbett's Cross is the winner for me if he shows up.
Okay. Here you go. I'm going to give you a winner here. I think I'm going to give you a winner anyway. A horse that hasn't been mentioned yet. Seabank Bistro. I really fancy this. I think this is fantastic each way value. And the reason is because of Corbett's Cross. Partly because of Corbett's Cross, at least. Seabank Bistro, bred by Willie Mullins. It was his first ever winner. He bred himself. It finished 4th in the champion bumper last year, back from 40 to 1 into 18 to 1 on the day behind Facile Vega. Nice run. It goes then and runs with Corbett's Cross and Limerick at Christmas. Is beaten 3.5 lengths, admittedly. but that was before Corbett's Cross changed hands and is now changed hands again, and is obviously the real deal. Corbett's Cross not 100% certain to run here, and Seabank Bistro 22-1 each way, non-runner, no bet. I tell you, you're in the money here. This can't be out of the places, in my opinion. On the basis of everything I know about it, I think it has to be a contender, and I think the price is wrong. So that's me. On that one, right, we'll move on. Gold Cup, the big one of the week. Another interesting race, and for lots of reasons, but we've got a very short price favourite here again, Galloping Deschamps. Never raced beyond 3 miles, so will it stay the trip of 3 miles, 2 furlongs and 70 yards? Johnny, will Galloping Deschamps stay?
I think he should stay. I think in the Gold Cup, I'm just a bit wary of taking a very short price for a horse. It's such a jumping test that you pretty much need to be foot perfect, fence to fence, and he obviously has a slight stamina doubt about him, and for all that he looks the best horse in the race. So, I'm willing to take him on with Aplutar, who obviously was so good in the race last year. His acceleration off the second last was something else. He ended up absolutely bolting up. Fantastic record at Cheltenham. I remember being in the press huddle with Henry de Bromhead when he pulled him out at Leopardstown at Christmas, and you're wondering where is this horse going. But the vibe seemed to be good, and if he bounces back, I think he has to be in the first 3. And you see 15-2 there as well. And obviously that Haydock performance was a worry, but if you forgive him that and he does bounce back, and the vibes suggest that he will, won by 15 lengths in the race last year with Protectorate back in third. I think he's definitely going to be a big player, and I wouldn't rule out Brave Man's Game either. He jumps and travels really well, and Paul Nichol's very bullish about his chance too. So we have a proper race.
Yeah, interesting. That's the third horse that you're going to forgive a run for that you've tipped up so far on this show. I'm not as forgiving as you, I have to say. A Plutard, fabulous last year, but shakers. It's going to be some training performance to bring this back to produce that again. Favourite for me is a serious contender, Galloping Deschamps. I presume he'll stay. They seem to think there's no question about the trip. But what a race. We've got Noble Yates in here, going to have cheap pieces put on for the first time since it won the Aintree Grand National. Hewick, great chance each way again. This is a cracker. Emma, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably as good as a Gold Cup you'd nearly see. You've got two winners coming back for it. You've got a Grand National winner, and you've got Hewick, the American Grand National winner, I suppose, thrown in there as well at a bigger price. But yeah, no, I'm with the favourite, to be honest. But he is short. He's considering. He's never gone the trip. He's probably nearly the price of a horse who's coming back for another Gold Cup rather than a horse running in his first Gold Cup. He fell at Cheltenham last year, when admittedly he was a long way in front, but it just makes him a bit short. 6-4. Statler, I think, is probably a good price. 8-1, 8-1 around that. I think he is. Thought he was very impressive. First time out behind Milena Indo. I just thought the way he ran that day kind of just showed that he wasn't just this big slow 4-miler. He kind of showed a bit of tactical. He could travel well around a track like Tremor even. And the last day he was behind Galloping Deschamps, I know that, but if you think reversing tracks here to Cheltenham, longer distance is going to be all in Statler's favour. So I think he'd have a big shout as well. And one at a bigger price, Milena Endo is probably way too big in the market. You think 20-1. I mean, a Gold Cup winner. I think Henry's saying he's having probably his best prep of his life coming into Cheltenham, and I thought he was brilliant in Tremor New Year's Day. So you wouldn't be surprised at all to see him running a massive race. And at 20-1, it's kind of an attractive looking price for me.
Yeah, this is some race, isn't it? And we haven't even mentioned Conflated, and of course Brave Man's Game is the other big English challenger in it. This could be an absolute humdinger of a race. But I suppose when you boil it all down, if Galloping Deschamps does what Galloping Deschamps can do and stays the trip and all the rest of it, it's going to be very hard for any of these to beat that horse. Cracking race. What's your best bet of the final day, Emma?
Probably going to go. Who am I going to go with? Sorry, who do we mention? We have
Corbett's Cross or Blood Destiny. Are they one of your ones?
Oh, sorry. Blood Destiny. I think Blood Destiny for me. Yeah, I think he'll win the. I think he'll win the juvenile.
And Johnny, what about you?
Just having a look here to see if there is sort of anything in the other races. I think Filey Bay in the County Hurdle, Vinny, is very, very solid each way. He's still quite lightly raced for that man Emmett Mullins, who has favourites in races back to back on the Friday for a small string of horses. It's mad how strong he's going to be represented here. I'll probably put Filey Bay each way as my best bet on day 4.
Okay, and for me, it's definitely Seabank Bistro each way, 22-1, non-runner, no bet. You can't go far wrong with that, I think. And look, that's it. We've gone through all 4 days. It's going to be a cracker. And we hope we've tipped you a few winners. I'm certain we have, because some of these have to win. Otherwise, they may as well cancel Cheltenham if some of these good things don't turn up and win. And make sure, if you are betting on Cheltenham, do bet responsibly. And enjoy the week. And it's going to be a cracker. And we'll be back with more videos all through Cheltenham week. We'll have one each day as well, with updates and latest news and all the rest. So great times ahead. Going to be a fantastic week next week. Thanks, guys, for joining me on the show. Really enjoyed it. And we'll see you all again next time.